Hey everyone, what's up? It's me again. So I've just got done wrapping up my 38 out of 40 in Necropolis SSF, and I wanted to make this kind of informal retrospective kind of video, just talking about my experiences playing this league so far in SSF, and touch upon some of the major changes that have come into the game, since the start of the Necropolis League, and talk about, the direction that this game's going and, all of that stuff. So this is just gonna be like an informal discussion type video, and yeah, hope you guys enjoy it. So yeah, I played a lot of SSF in this game. I think at this point I have like 5.5k hours in SSF, and I've been no-lifing this league pretty hard since release. So, I completed all the content, T17s, Ubers, everything. I farmed all the different league mechanics, and yeah, let's just get started. So, I'm going to break this video down into 5 sections. First is going to be, talking about, T17 slash Uber changes, the biggest change to this league. Then I'll talk a bit about balance, and then crafting, and then mapping slash general gameplay slash T16s, and then finally my hopium for 3.25. Okay, so the first and the major change in this league was the introduction of T17 maps. And for those of you who don't know, you can no longer do Ubers with the normal fragments. You have to complete a T17 map, and then this will drop you anywhere from 1 to 2 Uber fragments, and you get 5, and you can attempt an Uber fight. So I think this approach in and of itself is fine. However, I think the current implementation of it is not good, and I think it's toxic to the game. So just to give you guys some real time perspective on how difficult it is to access these fights, I've been no-lifing since the start of the league, which was like 3 weeks ago, and I've done 5 Uber fights. And that's like 30 T17s, and I could only attempt 5 Uber fights. And yeah, I think Ubers are just too inaccessible in SSF. First of all, you have to get the T17 map, and the drop rate is something around like 1 map every 1 to 2 hours. If you're just doing normal T16 mapping, I would say you only get 1 map every 2 hours. But if you've done something that I was doing on stream, which is magic find with 65 quant, play a broken build, max out your Atlas tree, get maximum explicit modifiers, quant, ghosted rogue exiles for more quant. If you juice as much as you can in SSF, you can probably get 1 map per hour, which is still a very, very low drop rate. And in addition, when you complete these T17s, sometimes you only get 1 fragment, which is really bad. And that means, for the average slash advanced player, you may have to play all day, 10 hours to get 1 Uber fight, which is just it's too low accessibility. There's just not enough. I only did 5 Uber fights the whole league. And in addition, the barrier of entry to, even doing this content is extremely high. Let me just play some B-roll for you guys here. So this is me doing a T17 on a level 97 broken meta build. And as you can see, it gets pretty crazy. This is Lycia and Bedat, and they both have shrines, and they both doing random shit. And yeah, as you can see, I just got one-shotted there. So the difficulty of these maps is extremely high, and even if you play a meta build, it's still challenging. And if you want to increase the loot that you get, you have to, juice these maps a little bit. And you also have to run these maps yellow, which means you have to, have a set of 6 to 8 very difficult mods on these maps. I think here I ran into a funny situation where one of the bosses had the regen shrine. So I literally was not able to do DPS to that boss because they were out regenning my 10 million, damage on this build. So I actually had to buy Frostbolt from the shop pop in Frostbolt on the spot, or not Frostbolt, Frostbomb, and I had to like, micromanage and like place the Frost Bomb to disable the regen shrine that Baydat got just so that I could kill this enemy, which I thought was kind of funny. But that just goes to show like how crazy and like, randomly difficult these maps can be. And that's just the bosses, like getting to the bosses can also be extremely difficult. Here I'm just like running around doing a T17. Yeah, like it's pretty hard. So yeah, it's like not the drop rate of the fragments is just too low, and the barriers to entry to this kind of content is just too high. Like I couldn't even imagine playing like an average / mediocre run-of-the-mill build this league because you would just struggle way too much doing T17 content, and you would not be able to like juice these at all. Like I was having difficulty doing these maps even on like the most powerful character I've maybe ever had ever. And I'll get into balance a little bit more later. But yeah, long story short, I think T17s as a concept is fine, but the current implementation is not fine, and I believe it's detrimental to, the player's experience. And on top of that, the T17 system, there's like added layers of complexity as well, for those of you who don't know. So certain Uber fragments are more biased towards dropping from certain T17 maps. Like for example, Ziggurat has a higher chance to drop these 3 fragments. And then Ziggurat only drops from these T16 maps. So if you want to farm a certain fragment, first you have to look up what the fragment is called. Then you have to look which T17 map is more biased towards dropping that fragment. Then you have to look up which T16 map drops that T17 map, and then you have to like set all your favorite slots to that map, and then you can like farm that map for like a whole day, and then maybe you can do one Uber fight. Like that's the state of the game right now, and I think it's a pretty toxic experience. They need to really rework the system. Like you can't even like farm an Uber without like 10 hours of gameplay. In addition to like looking at this screen, like you can't even like play the game without looking at the PoE wiki. So I think that's like not an okay system. And they need to rework this somehow. I don't know, like improve the drop rate, remove this confusion, make every T17 drop like 10 fragments or something that are all random. I don't know. They need to do something about it though. Like when I first started out playing SSF, you could just farm like a normal Exarch and just like click a keystone, and then you could attempt that fight. So like in a league, you could practice Uber Exarch like 20 times if you wanted to. And you can definitely not do the same thing today. Like nobody is going to farm for 20 days, 10 hours just to do 10 Uber Exarchs, So yeah, I think this change is detrimental to the game and it really needs to be reworked. And that's not to mention the loot changes as well. So like as an additional, slap in the face, certain uniques like Ashes and Omni, those things now only drop from the Uber versions, which are inaccessible now. So that just sucks. And, I had like so many normal boss things that I just didn't even run. Like I didn't even run my Mavens or like, a lot of my stuff because there was just simply no point. Like, there's just no point. Like, there's no reason to. There's nothing that the normal boss drops that is like worthwhile for like my builds. So yeah, it's weird, It's weird. And I don't like the system. They need to change it. So yeah, there's that. Okay, moving on to the next section, we have balance. So this league follows the same pattern as previous leagues where new content continually is introduced at a very high level of difficulty, but the average build power does not go up. And this league is especially bad because, T17s are some of the most difficult content we've ever seen. Like, look at this. This is a T17 map with like meat sacks. I was trying to do some random magic find thing that didn't work, but yeah, as you can see, the difficulty of T17s is very high, not only the map, but also the bosses themselves. And then in this league, you also have these things called haunted modifiers where, you pop open a map and every mob just has random, buffs. Like, look at this, like 75% fizz as extra, penetrate 10% of res, 20% more damage granted to pack members on death. And this is a 20 pack size thing. So if 19 monsters die, the last monster alive has like 4 times the damage. It's crazy. So, this league is like, the difficulty of the new content in this league is very high compared to, previous leagues / the base game. And the power of most average builds did not go up this league. You can scan over the patch notes, but there's no major buffs to like 99% of builds. And I think this is a problem. It's a problem because, going from last league to this league, you definitely feel that the relative power of 90% of builds compared to the content that you would do is a lot lower than before. Like, again, I can't even imagine attempting these T17s on like, an average build. Like, take an average build, like, I don't know, what's an average build? Like, Arc Witch? Like, the power of Arc Witch compared to the difficulty of the content in the game, this league, is like, it would just be so insane to like think of doing content like this on like, an average Arc Witch character. Whereas like, last league, maybe you could get away with it. But even last league, some of the empowered monsters, the Wisp empowered things were very difficult. So yeah. Anyway, what I'm saying is that there's a pattern where every league, the content gets more and more difficult. And as a player, I want to do this content, right? Like I want to farm T17s, I want to do Ubers, and I want to be able to survive the haunted modifiers. And what this basically means is that 99% of builds like relative power goes down, and then like 1% of like the top 5 meta builds, like the relative power of those builds go up. So I definitely got this feeling where if you wanted to like do the new content, you really just had to play a meta build just to be safe. And it's almost like unthinkable to like league start or play an average / subpar build if you want to do the new content introduced, which I want to do the new content, right? So I think that's a problem. I think it's a problem that like 99% of builds feel unappealing to play. And I think this needs to be changed. How? I don't know. Either reduce the monster difficulty or even better, just like introduce some unhinged buffs to underutilized builds and archetypes. I think the game desperately needs that. And yeah. Another thing with balance that I think is kind of problematic that, is more prominent in this league than ever before is this idea that like certain archetypes are just dominated by certain skills. For example, this league introduced a new gem called Archmage. It's a pre-existing gem, but the way it works is different. So there's like a new Archmage gem this league, which adds a lot of lightning damage based on your mana, and it doesn't consume your mana. It's just like you gain added lightning damage equal to your like unreserved max mana. So it just so happens that there is one skill in the game called Ice Nova of Frostbolts, which is what you're seeing here, and this skill is like numerically optimal for Archmage because every cast it can shotgun from 4 projectiles, and because of this you gain a very large amount of effective damage output if you play this skill. And like the problem is that if you play Archmage and you don't play Ice Nova of Frostbolts, you just have a less efficient build because your damage will be lower than someone playing this build, just numerically speaking. And I think this is a problem. I think it's a problem that entire archetypes are dominated by like 1 or 2 skills. And you see the same thing in melee. Like if you want to play melee in this league, you can play Bone Shatter, or you can play, Dual Strike of Ambidexterity, or whatever the new broken meta skill is. And everything else is just worse. And, I mean, you have like different builds that are good at different things. Like, Frostblades is a fast snapper, but, if we're talking about like, optimized builds in terms of clear, defense, offense, boss viability, gearing efficiency, if we're talking about, like efficiency, then we see a situation where certain archetypes are just dominated by one or two skills, especially in SSF, where it can be difficult to get like build enabling uniques and stuff. So I think that's a problem, like I would like to see a game where, you can play Archmage with like 10 different skills and it would only be like plus or minus like 5-10% power. Hey, a challenge. And I like to see a game where you can play like any melee skill. Hey, like I got one fragment. Now I just have to do 5 more of these to fight an Uber. Anyway, yeah, I like to see a game where, you can play like any melee skill and it would be like, again, only like plus or minus 5 to 10% more power compared to the top one. So yeah, I think balance has become kind of weird in the current state of the game. And again, this is like a natural outcome of every league blanket nerfs except for, certain top skills are untouched and then like some gems are just broken. But yeah, I don't know. I have no idea how they would fix the balancing problems, but it's a problem and it needs to be fixed in my opinion. Otherwise, it's not going to feel too good to like explore different builds. Yeah. Okay, moving on, we have crafting. So crafting, as you guys probably know what I'm about to say, with regard to crafting. Yeah, it kind of sucks. Like every league, we're continually seeing, more and more crafting things shafted/removed. There was once a time where you could reforge, keep prefix and harvest, reforge keep suffix, reforge more likely, and then there was once a time not too long ago where you could prefix cannot be changed, veiled chaos orb, suffix cannot be changed, veiled chaos, and where, you could easily farm, an Ashling tier 4, in every 1 to 2, masterminds. And now, all that is gone. Veiled Chaos Orb is gone. And the Veiled Orb has like a 1 in 8 drop rate or something. Like I farmed like 45 katas this league. And I got like 6 to 7 Veiled Orbs. Like which casual player is going to farm like 8 masterminds to get 1 attempt at a Veiled Orb? It's ridiculous. So yeah, crafting I think is in a pretty bad state. And then, essences also got hit, shrieking essences no longer duplicate, which is bad. So like you have like a lot less essence acquisition rate than before. And it's actually not removed. You can still get essences to, duplicate, but it's different. The way that it works now is that you have to like defeat essences, and then every time you defeat an essence, the map boss gains an essence. So you can still get like duplicate essences per map. However, map bosses with essences are ridiculous. And even playing meta builds like, Bone Shatter Slayer, which is not even that meta anymore, but like even playing this build or like Righteous Fire, Chieftain, like even playing powerful meta builds with a lot of defense and offense, it was difficult to kill map bosses that had like 4 to 5 essences on them. So yeah, I've been like not even taking this node when I farm essences just because, the map bosses are just too insane with essence mods on them. So it's just a lot more difficult to obtain essences now. And, with the removal of Veiled Chaos and the gutting of the Veiled Orb drop rate, there's like not much to look forward to in terms of crafting. And the only things that you can do now is you can ROG craft, you can chaos spam, and every day you can maybe click like a dozen essences. Like some of these essences I haven't even used like in the entire league. And, you know, like I have like, you know, 64 of these things. Like, you know, you can like click all these on an item and still not get a good result. So, yeah, you know, there's just not really much to do besides like ROG, Chaos Spam, and like click essences that you get like at a lower rate than before. And it feels really bad. I guess there's also Harvest, but, you know, like you don't get enough like life force to like spam these options. You have to like be very like conservative with your life force usage in SSF. So yeah, crafting is in a pretty bad state in SSF, and it's honestly pretty depressing because I love crafting, but there's just not much that you can do. And then I fear that next league, I fear that they will nerf ROG to like, you know, quote unquote bring it in line with like other crafting options, and then all we're gonna have is chaos spam. So yeah, it's a big problem. You know, crafting needs a big rework in my opinion that is like SSF friendly. And I guess there's also fossils, but like, you know, fossil crafting sucks. Like even with this node, which gives you basically infinite azurite mining byproducts, which allows you to buy like infinite resonators, like it still sucks to fossil craft things. Like I don't think I fossil craft a single good thing this league, and I probably clicked like hundreds of these things, and it just sucks. So yeah. And then, you know, I guess there is also the Necropolis graveyard crafting mechanic, which is like okay. Like I printed, you know, I printed some pretty sick items like this wand. You know, I ended up dropping a mirror and I mirrored this wand that I grave crafted. It's not optimal, but it's like, you know, 6T1. And then I also mirror crafted this foil, which has like triple T1 fizz prefixes and stuff. So like the lead mechanic is like okay for crafting. But you do have to like pick up corpses for like 4 days. Like you have to pick up corpses for like 4 days to attempt a single craft, which is a long time. And I would imagine that's like pretty frustrating for the average player. Like, you know, if you're an average player, you know, it's probably not too exciting for you to like farm 10 hours a day for 4 days just so you can attempt one grave craft, which could miss. Like it could, you know, like not give you the good result, right? Like I've definitely farmed like 4 weeks and like tried one craft and then just bricked my item. So, you know, you don't always win, but you know, when you do, it's like an item printer. It's like okay, but again, like, you know, this mechanic feels like this graveyard crafting mechanic feels like a band-aid fix. Like this feels like slapping a band-aid over a gutted, broken crafting system. And next league, this is probably going away. And then we're going to be left with nothing but, you know, the broken gutted crafting system. So yeah, crafting needs a rework. Okay, moving on. Mapping / general gameplay / T16s. I think the general mapping experience has actually, you know, improved, which I think is good. You know, having 3 atlas trees to pick from is 100%, you know, very good. And, you know, the new scarab rework, I think is also pretty good. You know, some of these new scarabs are really fun to use. Like, you know, there's like one that gives you the nameless seer, which I didn't get the entire league, but you know, it is what it is. You know, some of these are just pretty fun. This one makes your expeditions crazy. You know, you can get Chayula guaranteed in your maps. You can target farm catalysts in expedition. You can put a lot of boxes on your maps. You can make all your maps drop with like corrupted with 8 mod, which is very good. You know, you can imprison the rare monsters in your maps in essences. Yeah, like some of these scarabs are like really fun to use. And I think this change is definitely good. However, it does have its downsides as well. Like, you know, it is tedious to pick up all these scarabs one by one. Like every one of these scarabs is 1 click, right? Like they don't stack. Like most of the time when you drop one scarab, like most of the time when you drop a scarab, it's like 1, right? So it's like a lot of clicking to like pick all these up. And I think another like small complaint I have is that there's like scarab wheels now. Like if you want to like target farm scarabs, you have to like invest into these wheels. which I think is unnecessary. I think these wheels should like be built into the game. Like the power that you get from clicking these wheels, I believe should be built into the game. Like it kind of feels bad to need to invest points into this. Otherwise, you're just straight up missing out on loot. Like, why do I have to invest like 50 points to get loot? And if I don't, I just get less scarabs. Like, that feels kind of bad. And you see the same thing with the league mechanic. Like, if you want to get corpses, if you want to get all flames, if you want to get, stuff, you have to take these Necropolis wheels, which kind of feels like an anti-pattern to me. Like, if I want to get the maximum scarabs and the maximum, loot from the league mechanic, I have to spend like 50 skill points to get all the Necropolis and the scarab wheels, and then I have like nothing left to do my own custom shit. So I think like some of these wheels should just be like baked into the game, and you shouldn't have to spend points to get those bonuses. It should just be like built into like the drop rate. That's like a small complaint, but overall I would say the overall mapping experience, the general mapping experience is going in a good direction. Being able to swap between 3 trees is great. I have like a general magic find farming tree. I have like a T17 tree just to like do these a little easier. And then I have like a random tree here, which, it's cleanup need. I need to like redo this tree. But yeah, and then for the longest time, I also had like an invitation tree where I took like destructive play, and I only took like the, influenced, map stuff so that I could run invitations and like get the maximum loot from that. So this change is good overall, but I think a couple things could be improved to give the player some more agency. Okay, so that's that. I think we covered almost everything, and I guess the last thing to talk about is, my hopium for 3.25. What would I like to see for next league? What would I like to see to like reassure me that the game is like going in a good direction? The major one is obviously, the T17 accessibility, the Uber boss accessibility thing. This system needs to be reworked or buffed. Like we need to see like 3 times, 5 times, fragment drop rate increase. We need to see like reduced difficulty of T17s. If I want to run them white, I should be able to run them white. I shouldn't have to like chaos them to run them. What else? Yeah, this system needs to be reworked. Remove all this confusing, like targeted, like, 3 layers of like targeted, farm this map to get this fragment, farm this map to get this map. Like, this entire system should be removed. Like, I should be able to fight Uber Eater without consulting like 2,000 words on a wiki page. That needs to be removed. Yeah. The relative power of like generic / like average builds compared to content difficulty also needs to be reworked. Like I want more builds that can do T17s. I want more power for like average / subpar builds that no one is playing. I want archetypes to not be dominated by only one skill. Like I want to be able to play Archmage, with like 10 different skills, or like I want to play melee with like many, many different skills. I want to play bleed with like a lot of different skills, and I want to be able to like do T17s with them. So yeah, balance needs work. Crafting definitely needs a big rework. The current state of SSF crafting is pretty sad and pretty depressing when I think about it. Yeah, there needs to be some kind of like crafting rework, introduction of some new systems or some new orbs or whatever. Like, yeah, we need like new crafting orb. Just like add a new like box on this currency tab. Like there's like space here. Just like add a new row and like give us like last epoch level crafting, orb power. There needs to be some rework because, it feels kind of bad to craft in SSF right now. And then remove melee totems. Yep, remove melee totems. Enough said. Can't believe they're still in the game, honestly. It's messed up. All right, well, that's basically my thoughts, on Necropolis League. I would say if I had to rate this league out of 10, I think I would still give it like a 4 out of 10. Yeah, the Scarab and the T16 gameplay improvements, Atlas trees, is a pro, but there are glaring problems in balance, in crafting, in Uber accessibility that I think need to be fixed. And I really hope they fix it next league, and then the game can be more fun. So yeah, that's basically my overall thoughts on this league. Yeah, I think I'm gonna like take a break from playing Path of Exile for a while. I'm gonna be like streaming some Warhammer 3 in the near future, if anyone would be interested. There's like a new expansion, like a major rework expansion called Shadows of Decay or whatever, that's coming out on April 30th. So I will try to stream a bit of that on Twitch. But yeah, it's been a good league. I definitely had fun. It's been really fun making videos and like streaming the game as usual. Hanging out with all of y'all in Twitch chat. If anyone watching this is a Twitch viewer. So yeah, overall, still had a positive experience playing this league. Definitely a positive experience. But yeah, I do have some wishes on, like how they can improve the game going forward. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or whatever. Like maybe share like what you liked about the league. I would love to hear like what you guys thought was fun this league, what you guys thought was not so fun, things you think could be improved, and yeah, what would you like to see in next league? Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this kind of informal, like league retro discussion kind of video. Yeah. All right. I will see you guys in the next video, whenever that is, or I'll see you on stream for some Warhammer 3 action. I don't know why I said it like that. All right. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the PoE content this league, and yep.